I am just a few weeks away from turning 38 years old. And I'll tell you something, I am not ashamed to be pushing 40. In fact, I celebrate my age because there's no way I could have the wisdom I have now as a 38-year-old compared to when I was 30, 25, 20. I'm at a point now where I can really celebrate my life experience because of what it has taught me. And I'm making this video to share with anyone else who hasn't learned these things yet. Why can I just save you like a lot of trouble and just tell you the answers to the test now so that you don't have to learn the hard way, so that you don't have to live nearly 38 years before you understand the basics of ultimately what makes us happy, what allows us to be able to even choose joy. So here's what I've discovered about people, about human beings, myself included, that ultimately there are three things that hold people back. And it doesn't matter how much education you have. You can have a very high IQ, but if you can't get past these three things, you're always going to be held back. So let's check these out right now. These I created this. You're not going to find this anywhere else. This is just some random guy on the internet sharing his experience with you. But there's three things holding most people back that they fail to recognize. So let's look at the first one, and that is healing your wounds. I think so many people have hidden wounds or wounds that they know that they have, but they just never dealt with them. And what I've seen is a pattern here. Okay? People who specifically suffer from depression, anxiety, addiction, things like that, I've noticed a pattern. I've yet to meet a person who struggles with one of those. And even like, for example, obesity. Often is like morbid obesity. You've seen that show on where it's My 500-Pound Life. Every single episode, once you get 20 minutes into it, you learn what happened to them when they were young. They never dealt with it, and that's their defense, right? So when we look at these things that happen to people, again, depression, anxiety, basically just suicide by the way they're treating their body, maybe actually suicide. There are wounds that were never healed, never dealt with, often in their youth, in their childhood. They were never taken to a counselor or a professional to talk that out and to deal with that. And therefore, what happens is they have these other demons now that kind of take the place, the demonic substitution, basically, of what they actually needed to sort out with a counselor and a professional and a psychologist. So many people have those wounds, and they don't have the capacity to overcome them or deal with them on their own when they happen to them. So I've noticed that pattern. So first is recognizing what your wounds are, going to a professional, a psychiatrist, counselor, someone who can help you professionally unpack that. That's the first thing. And then for the second thing, that is going to be what I call emotional intelligence. Very few people, I've learned, sadly, recognize that it's impossible for any other person to hurt your feelings, to offend you, insult you, or disrespect you unless you let them. You always give them authority. In the same way, 100% of the time, it's up to you whether you're going to forgive another person. It's a choice. In the same way, it's a choice to be offended, insulted, disrespected. But most people won't recognize the power that they have over their own emotions and let that person on the interstate who flipped them off, then they get mad at that person, honk their horn, and start cursing them out. That's childish. But most people won't recognize that you get to control how you feel. Yes, we have emotions and they're there for a reason. But most people let their own emotions get the most of them, and especially, mostly, in response to how other people treat them, speak with them, speak to them, say about them. They let other people control their own emotions. And similarly, this also happens too with even just the identity, the concept of self-esteem. Imagine the irony when people base their own identity off of what other people think about them, for better or worse. How is that self-esteem? Isn't that your esteem is based on other people? But when you recognize that you control your own emotions, and if not, they control you, you're able to think more independently and freely. But most people will leave that breaker switch on where they let other people offend them instead of turning it off. And then moving on to the third thing here, what I'm going to call the morality delusion. Most people, sadly, think this about themselves. Yeah, I'm a good person. It's ridiculous when we really think about that. I'm a good person. And I can confidently tell you that I'm not a good person, because good people don't exist. Bad people don't exist. There's no way to determine that by human standards who's good and who's bad, because we're only going to compare ourselves to people that we're better than morally. But even then, maybe we have not committed the same crimes, and I'm going to put that in quotation marks, same sins, however you want to label it. Maybe we haven't done the same bad things as the next guy over here. But maybe he's overcome that and become a better person despite it. Maybe he needed to go through that so that he could be the person he is now. So maybe you're actually not better than the guy who is an axe murderer, because that's always the go-to. Well, at least I'm not an axe murderer. Is that really how we're going to qualify? We can't really know. I mean, ultimately, as human beings, we get to choose, we get to make decisions that are ultimately helpful to others or hurtful to others. And it goes back to the concept of hurt people hurt people. That's what they do. But people who have been healed are going to heal other people, to help other people. But it really is this simple. Just ask yourself. First question, do I have any hidden wounds? Did something happen to me in my youth that I never really told anybody about, but it's kind of really framed my whole life and the way I see myself and other people and the whole world, and I never dealt with it. I never talked to a professional about it. Well, chances are, if that's you, you are more prone to things like anxiety, depression, addiction, all that stuff. It's important that we deal with that. And then number 2, emotional intelligence, taking claim over our own emotions, not seeing ourselves as the victim, but finding a way to be victorious in what we do instead of letting someone else control us. And then lastly, refusing to see ourselves as good people. People exist. Good and bad people, no, that helps the narrative for Star Wars movies and superhero movies. It's easy to identify because we want to identify as that good person, which I stopped doing. At best, I'm Han Solo or something chaotic neutral, where yes, I do my best to do the right thing, but I'm going to fail people. I'm going to disappoint people in the process. And it's not like but I'm a good person. Don't hurt my feelings. No, go ahead and say whatever you want to, because ultimately what people say about you is a reflection of how they see themselves. And I recognize that. Again, hurt people hurt people. So I feel that this video, what I'm sharing with you in this video, is some of the best knowledge that I have learned in my life. Now, I know that people like to dog me about not knowing enough about certain stuff, and I openly talk about DNA tests and ethnicity and a lot of that stuff on my channel, which I am no expert on, and that's just a casual conversation. But I'd be curious to see if there's anybody out there who would be able to say that they disagree with what I've said in this video. I feel that this is one of the most intelligent videos I've ever shared with people, because I think this is actually the most helpful. I think a lot of times when you haven't lived enough life experience, it's hard to know these 3 rules that I've shared with you in the video. Do you have hidden wounds? Are you still letting other people emotionally control you? And then lastly, are you under this illusion that you're a good person? Because if you think that you're a good person, you're going to think that you deserve good things and that you don't deserve bad things. But bad people, good things still happen to them. And definitely bad things still happen to good people. Because there's no difference. It's all a matter of perception. The moment you unplug from this mentality, you're able to be so much freer. And that's why I'm willing to spend 10 minutes to make a video to share this with anyone who will watch, even if this video never becomes popular. This information has changed my life radically. I'm a couple weeks away from turning 38. I didn't really start grasping this until I turned 35. And I'm such a different person now than when I was at 30. If only I knew this stuff earlier. Well, the good news is a lot of you are younger than me, so you can learn it now. And even if you're older than me, hey, better late than never. You got comments? They belong right here.